Well, welcome everyone to our AnSRS4U presentation. I'm David Hollingsworth, Director of Professional Development and Outreach for TAMU Sponsored Research Services. I'm very pleased to also have presenting with me today Sue Hibbs, Director of Proposal Services here at SRS, and also Dr. Sharmila Pathakanda, Director of Research Development for the Texas A&M University System. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the background and statistics for NSF. Sue's going to focus on the proposal, the various components that go into that. Sharmila is going to talk about collaborative proposals and also some special different types of proposals that can be submitted. So hopefully if you're new to NSF, this will be a good overview for you. If you've been submitting to NSF or pretty familiar with it, hopefully you'll still probably come away with one or two new ideas or thoughts that you didn't already know about NSF. All right, well, I want to give you just a little bit of historical background about how NSF came about. Really the federal government was not sponsoring a lot of research at universities before World War II, but during World War II, because of the need to come up with a lot of new innovative type things to help in the war effort, they started funding a lot of research at universities. And one of the federal offices that was created was this Office of Scientific Research and Development. And one of the folks that ran that was the name of Vannevar Bush. And the president, basically, Roosevelt came to him toward the end of the war and said, we need to come up with an idea of how we can continue to fund research at universities even after the war ends. And so he wrote this landmark paper called The Science, the Endless Frontier. If you're ever interested, it's posted on the NSF website. You can Google that. It's a very interesting paper and the concept, but basically he had the concept to establish a national research foundation that would do basically all types of research, including defense and medicine research. Well, as it typically might happen even today, this thing took a long time to get approved by Congress, like 5 years. And so within that period of time, other agencies sort of continued to do research with universities. And basically NIH was doing the medical research. So when NSF finally was established, it did a wide range of various scientific topics that it would cover, but it excluded the medical research because NIH was already way ahead in performing that type of research. So it gives you just a little bit of background on that. It's actually we see there the org chart, it's actually an independent agency. Basically, it doesn't report up to a cabinet level position. And as you can see there, it talks about there's a director, deputy director. And so it has two major leadership components. One is a director that oversees the NSF staff and the management, responsible for the program creation and the merit review and basically the day-to-day operations. What you'll notice also, there's a group called the National Science Board. And that's a group that serves 6-year terms. They are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. It's 24 individuals that are on that. And so they basically set sort of scientific policy and serve as a resource for the president and the nation in scientific and technology areas. You can look down below and you see that NSF has 7 different directorates in various research areas. Like you see the Directorate for Biological Sciences, Education, Human Resources, Geosciences, Engineering, Computer Science. I won't read all of them. And a new one that they've just started this last year is that Directorate for Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships. One thing that's kind of unique about NSF that sets us aside from some of the other agencies that do research is that NSF doesn't operate any of its own labs. You know, some of the other federal agencies have their own internal labs where they do research. NSF doesn't. So basically all their research is conducted by external folks like universities or for-profits or nonprofits. I will mention NSF has their workforce are located right there outside of DC and Virginia. About 2,100 people work for NSF. But one unique thing is that they have what they call rotators. So our university researchers have the opportunity to apply and go work at NSF for a period of like 1 to 3 years. So they're always getting sort of fresh blood and fresh ideas in helping to operate their program. So that's one thing. And we've had a number of professors over the years from Texas A&M that have gone to work at NSF. All right, let's look at a few statistics here. That top left circle, 93%. So out of their budget, basically, you know, the majority, 93%, is funding research and educational activities. So going to fund grants and cooperative agreements. Their budget is this in 2022 was $8.8 billion. Now you think, wow, that sounds pretty large, but they're fairly small compared to some of the other entities like the National Institutes of Health. Their budget's about $45 billion. So you can kind of see the difference there. And let's talk about the proposals. You can see there, they say that they receive about 43,600 proposals a year, and roughly 11,300 are awarded. So that comes out to about a 26% funding rate. And that's been holding pretty steady. You know, if you look at like a 10-year average, it's typically going to be in the mid to low 20s as far as funding success rates. So as you can see, we've got to write and submit a lot of proposals in order to be funded. I want to just throw out this question here. You know, SRS, we basically on a yearly basis submit about 5,000 proposals overall. How many do you think are submitted to NSF? Well, I'll give you the answer here. About 720 of our 5,000 proposals were submitted to NSF in 2021. And of those, 193 were awarded. So that's about a 26% funding rate. So we're right in line with the national average as far as success rates for NSF proposals. Our research expenditures in FY21 from NSF and NSF flow-through dollars was 112 million. And so you can see that NSF makes up a very important part of the Texas A&M and our agencies of their research portfolio. So they're an important sponsor to us. This slide would just show the percentage that NSF funds for various different areas of research. Some areas, as you can see on this graphic here, it's very large, like with computer science, 79% of the basic funding, federal funding that comes to computer science is coming through the National Science Foundation. Mathematics, very high there, 71%, biology, 65%. So you can see, especially for certain scientific areas, NSF is a very important source of funding for them. Just point out on this slide that 80% of the funding that goes out from NSF is going to colleges, universities, and academic consortia. So as an educational institution, we're a large part of the funding that NSF is sponsoring. 4% for other and 4% for federally funded research and development centers and 13% for private industries. So NSF is a good sponsor to work for institutions to work with because again, so much of their funding is going to colleges and universities that they know exactly how to work with us, and they value the input that we provide to them. Here's a slide of the policies and awards policies and procedures guide. Some people just call it PAPPG or PAP guide. This is a document that NSF puts out generally every year, and there's some updates to it. And it provides the guidance for the submission of proposals, and also sets forth their award policies for the administration of the grant once it's received. So there's sort of two parts in this: the pre-award policies, and then how to handle that grant on post-award. Typically, like I said, they put this out every year, and one thing NSF does, they put the new one out via the Federal Register, and they solicit input on it. So it was back in just April that the one that came out for, it's going to be effective FY23. And they invited public comment on that, and then they'll take that back and maybe make some changes to their proposed policies, or they may decide, you know, hey, even with the comment, that we're going to have to leave things as they are. So the next one is going to be effective in January 2023. So I want to just touch base on a couple of the proposed changes. We've previously sent out some emails about this. But one of the big changes, and especially, you know, make sure that your faculty members are aware of this. In the past, there's been two options when they're preparing their biographical sketch. They could use a fillable PDF that NSF provided, or they could use Science CV. If these changes go into effect, then it's going to require the use of Science CV to prepare their biographical sketch, and the same will be true of the current and pending support. It's going to require the use of Science CV to prepare that. Another change is that typically those are always in your proposal that you submit, and that's going to be the same. But in addition to that, they're going to request an updated current and pending support prior to making that funding recommendation. And we'll see when Sharmila covers some in her slides about the peer review process. But generally, it can take 6 to 9 months from the time that we submit a proposal until it's recommended for funding. And so things can change in the current and pending support. They can get other proposals awarded or whatever it might be. And so the program officers are going to start requiring that, similar to what NIH does, as a just-in-time, right before they make the award. They're also encouraging individuals to obtain an ORCID ID. And ORCID is basically, it's a free software that you can, database basically, and you can put your information like your publications into ORCID, and then that can pre-populate your biographical sketch and make it, you know, easier to create that. So they're encouraging people to get an ORCID ID and use ORCID. Another big change that they mentioned is the broad agency announcements, BAAs. It's now been added as a new type of funding opportunity at NSF. And so there'll be specific funding opportunities that come out, and they'll indicate if it is a BAA. They're actually going to have those posted on sam.gov as far as the funding opportunity announcements. And there will have a separate, basically simplified portal to submit your BAA. So you won't be using research.gov. And one reason for that is that they're trying to attract more industry. Typically, these BAAs may be targeted toward industry or non-educational institutions, folks that haven't typically applied in NSF before. And so they want to have a fairly simple interface for them to submit their proposals. They'll have to have a login.gov user ID. So those, we should see a few more of those coming along. And again, that's a way to kind of encourage non-traditional respondents or applicants to respond to these. The other thing is requiring this use of what they call the prospect tool for the submission of concept outlines. So there's been, and Sharmila is going to touch on this, there's various special programs, one's called like the Rapid or the Eager. And in the past, a faculty member would have to email the program manager with the idea of what he wants to submit, and would get a response back to either, yes, go ahead and submit that, or no, that doesn't really fill the purpose of that particular program, so don't submit. So it was a little bit of an informal back and forth. So now they basically have created a portal where the faculty member will go in there and submit their idea through this portal and get their feedback again back through the portal. So just talking about a couple of types of submissions, we have letters of intent. Typically, those maybe for like some large programs, they'll ask you to submit a letter of intent. Generally, it's not binding, but they want to know who's going to be submitting a full proposal or a preliminary proposal, so that they have a better idea on the volume, and also on maybe setting up the review panels. So those are letters of intent. We just talked about this concept outline that will be used for certain types of programs. And then we have preliminary proposals. So for some large type of submissions that generally only a few will be funded, rather than requiring the faculty member and the institution to go through a lot of work on submitting a full proposal, typically the funding opportunity may require you to submit a preliminary proposal that doesn't maybe have all the components. Maybe it doesn't have a detailed budget. So you'll submit that, though it will be reviewed, and then you'll get feedback as to go ahead and submit a full proposal, or no, we don't want you to submit a full proposal. So that's what preliminary proposals, basically to help reduce some of the burden on those that are preparing proposals. Of course, full proposals, and Sue's going to talk about the different components that go in a full proposal. And then we already mentioned about the broad agency announcements as a new type that NSF will be using. So phasing out FastLane, for those that maybe have been around a long time, we can possibly remember when FastLane came into existence. Basically, it was NSF was the first agency to have a type of electronic proposal submission process, a process that, today we all take that for granted. But in the old days, it was paper submissions. They're phasing out FastLane, and it's being replaced with Resourc.gov. They've been doing this over a number of years and adding more types of proposals to Resourc.gov. And they anticipate having FastLane phased out and no longer in use by this coming January, so January 2023. So it's important, and many of the solicitations now would just only allow you to submit via Resourc.gov or grants.gov. Just as a reminder, grants.gov is sort of the generic federal portal. I think at least maybe 16 or more federal agencies use that to submit that. Typically, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that an agency portal will have. Like Resourc.gov has a lot of error checking ability. So as you're working on your proposal and you're entering and uploading documents, you can see what's still required. So just keep in mind that, again, FastLane will be phased out here very shortly. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sue, and Sue's going to talk about some of the various sections of the proposal and what goes into submitting a proposal to NSF.
So these are the main sections of an NSF proposal, and this is shown as it appears in Resourc.gov. Since FastLane will not be available beginning next year, we are submitting most of our NSF proposals via Resourc.gov. We are presenting just an overview of these. In the PAPPG, the Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide that David referenced, there is detail on each section, so please refer to that if you are preparing a proposal. The cover sheet is initiated by the PI. It has to be initiated under your login. You'll go through a series of steps to properly set up the proposal. And after you get that started, please remember to to go through the option to share the proposal with SPO/AOR. That's Sponsored Project Office Authorized Organizational Representative. That is us. That allows our office to see and to work on and eventually submit the proposal when it is finished. And keep in mind too, that once you set up the cover sheet, you cannot go back and change things like the program announcement or the selection for whether it's a collaborative, what type of collaborative proposal. So if you do have to go back and make changes, you're probably going to have to restart and set up a new one. These are optional sections of the proposal on the research.gov screen. These appear at the bottom. And we'll go over each of those to explain later. The project summary. In research.gov, this is an uploaded document. If you remember in Fastlane, it was most of the time a cut and paste thing into the blocks that were in Fastlane. It is now an uploaded document. It should be no more than 1 page, and it must have 3 separate sections with headers. And those are the overview, description of the activity that would result if the proposal were funded, and a statement of objectives and methods to be employed. The intellectual merit, that should describe the potential of the proposed activity to advance knowledge. And then the broader impact section, which should describe the potential of the proposed activity to benefit society and contribute to the achievement of specific desired societal outcomes. Project description. This is your main narrative. Generally, it is 15 pages, but refer to the funding opportunity for guidance. It should provide a clear statement of the work to be undertaken. It must include a section labeled broader impacts, and it must include a section labeled results from prior NSF support. That is to be covered for the PI or any co-PIs, and any awards with end date in the past 5 years, or any current funding, including any no-cost extension. And there is a limit of 5 pages to that part of it, of the project description. References cited should just follow accepted scholarly practices in providing citations for source materials. References should avoid the use of et al. So please list all of the authors except for large consortia papers. And there is no page limit, it's as needed. Budget and budget justification. A detailed budget must be supplied for each year of the project duration. The system will generate that cumulative budget. Project periods are generally 3 to 5 years. The budget justification should document and justify each budget line item, and it should detail the rates of pay by individual for senior personnel, postdoctoral associates, and other professionals. Generally, that's just a line at the end of their description of their role, which says rate of pay is so-and-so per month. The budget justification has a 5-page limit, and each subaward must include a separate detailed budget and budget justification for their expenses. Their budget justification also has a 5-page limit. Your SRS proposal administrator will work with you on the budget and input it into the research.gov system when it's finalized. Any subaward institutions will be asked to input their own budgets. Participant support. This is a section of the budget, but it's sometimes confusing, so we'll discuss it a little bit separately. Participant support costs. These costs refer to direct costs for items such as stipends or subsistence allowances, travel allowances, registration fees that are paid to or on behalf of participants or trainees, but not employees, in connection with NSF-sponsored conferences or training projects. If you, on your proposal, are bringing in high school teachers for a summer session and you're going to train them and let them do some research activities, that we can put their costs, these costs for them, under participant support. Speakers and trainers generally are not considered participants and should generally not be included in this section. However, there's always a however, if the primary purpose of the individual's attendance at the conference is learning and receiving training as a participant, then you can include those costs, even though they are doing some speaking. But if their primary purpose is to speak or assist you with the management, then their costs should not be included. Payments to human subjects as incentives are not considered participant support. Those costs are budgeted under other direct costs. And participant support costs are exempt from indirect. Facilities, equipment, and other resources. This section is used to assess the adequacy of the resources available to perform the effort proposed to satisfy both the intellectual merit and the broader impacts review criteria. It should describe only those resources that are directly applicable, should be narrative in nature, and should not include any quantifiable financial information. Senior personnel documents. In research.gov, there is a major section, senior personnel documents, and under that are spaces to upload your biographical sketch, your current and pending support, and your collaborators and other affiliations document, which is done in Excel spreadsheet. So the first one, the biographical sketch, must be submitted through the use of an NSF approved format. Right now, there's a fillable form for that, or Science CV is accepted. Effective January 2023, as David was telling us, only Science CV is accepted. So please get signed up on that if you have not, and start learning how to use it. 3-page limit for your biographical sketch. The required sections, professional preparation, institutions, you put your institutions, their location, the degrees you received, etc. Appointments, academic professional appointments in reverse chronological order. Products, a list of up to 5 products most closely related to the proposed project, and up to 5 other significant products, whether they're related or not. This could be publications, data sets, software, patents, copyrights. And then synergistic activities, a list of up to 5 distinct examples that demonstrate the broader impact of your professional and scholarly activities. Example would be innovations in teaching or training. And please remember, no multiples are allowed in the list, meaning don't list one topic and then 10 items under it. Current and pending supports must be submitted through the use of an NSF approved format, fillable form right now, or Science CV. NSF uses this information to assess the capacity of the individual to carry out the research as proposed, as well as to help assess any potential overlap or duplication with the project being proposed. A separate current and pending support form must be uploaded for each individual designated as senior personnel. Not reported. You're not required to report gifts or organizational startup packages provided to the individual from the proposing organization. If there are startup packages from other than the proposing organization, then those should be reported. This section of the proposal calls for required information on all current and pending support for ongoing projects and proposals, including this project that you're applying for. So please be sure to include that. Also, any subsequent funding in case of continuing grants. This chart is available on the NSF site as a guidance tool for what information, what type of activity should be reported on what document, the biosketch, the current and pending support in your facilities or in your project reports. Collaborators and other affiliations. This is submitted, you'll fill out an Excel document. You download the template. It's an Excel document. You follow the directions and fill out the template, and then it's uploaded into the senior personnel section. It's classified as a single copy document, which means it's for NSF use only. And they use this information in the form that they request to manage reviewer selection. It's something they can search. It is not seen by reviewers. Data management plan. All proposals must describe plans for data management and sharing of the products of the research. There's a 2-page limit to this document. Data management requirements and plans should be specific to the directorate, office, division, program, or other NSF unit. There is some guidance online. If you Google link to DMP guidance NSF, it will come up and it give you each of the directorates or the divisions, and you can go into those and see if they have specific guidance for requirements on their data management plan. If there is no specific guidance, then you just follow what's in the PAPPG. As a note, only one plan is submitted per proposal. If this is a collaborative proposal, only the lead institution will submit this document. Postdoctoral mentoring plan. If your budget includes a postdoc, you must submit a postdoctoral mentoring plan, and we will get an error and not be unable to submit if that plan is not in there, if there is a postdoc on the budget. It should be no more than 1 page. It must describe the mentoring that will be provided to all postdocs supported by the project. Our institution, any subrecipient institutions, any non-lead organizations, if it is a collaborative proposal. Again, as the data management plan, it's only one plan is submitted per proposal. If this is a collaborative, only the lead institution will submit it. Okay, optional sections. If you have a postdoc or other professional or student that you feel is exceptional and you think it would value the proposal, you can submit their biosketch in this section. It should include information on the exceptional qualifications that merit consideration in evaluation of the proposal. Other supplementary documents. Many times, a lot of the time, in your funding opportunity announcement, there are calls for supplementary documents that vary by the announcement. They may ask for a list of personnel. That's a common one. They may ask for a management plan or collaboration plan. Those are generally submitted under other supplementary documents. And you can upload multiple files to this section. List of suggested reviewers. This is classified as an NSF single copy document, meaning only NSF sees this. If you have reviewers that you think would be good to review this proposal, you can put those names and contact information in there. Likewise, if you have someone that you don't feel would be appropriate to review this, you can upload a list of reviewers not to include. Deviation authorization. We don't see this much, but if you have requested and been approved or authorized by NSF to deviate from the guidelines in any way, you must upload that documentation in this section. And then additional single copy documents. These are not seen by reviewers. An example might be if the organization wanted to input the name of a substitute negotiator, and it could be uploaded there. Again, things that only NSF will see. And that's the end of the overview of the proposal sections. If you have questions or need help, please reach out to us. We're here to assist in the successful proposal. And Sharmila will now discuss collaborative proposals.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you, David. It's been a great joy watching you all present the other pieces. So here, I'm from the system office, and we are here to provide the support to all our system members. So if you have any need or are looking for support, and you can always reach out to me. So let's get going with the separate collaborative proposals. So Sue and David mentioned a few times collaborative research, collaborative proposals. Many times we do have collaborators, and it's more than one PI on the proposal team. And sometimes we are able to submit the proposal as one single piece, meaning that, having the external team members as sub-awardees. And in many other instances, the guidelines or the RFP will specifically say that, submit as separate collaborative proposals. So what does that mean? So proposals from more than one institutions can be submitted as something called the collaborative research. And there is an option there is a checkbox that you have to check off on the cover page in research.gov where it says collaborative research proposal. So, and all these proposals start with the title collaborative research, and that's the norm. So each institution is awarded funds separately by NSF, and this is a nice part of it, that meaning that each institution submits their own piece of budget, and then when awarded, they are responsible for managing their budgets, etc. So you as a lead institution don't have to worry about that sub-budget related documentations. So the lead organization will link the proposals from the collaborative institutions. So meaning that the lead institution initiates their own proposal on research.gov. The collaborative institution also initiates their piece of proposal on research.gov, and then they are linked to the lead proposal. So all of the components of the collaborative proposal must meet the deadline as the lead institution, meaning if the proposal is due today at 5 p.m. local time, the lead institution submits their piece before the 5 p.m. deadline local time, and then same for the collaborative. So if you're on Eastern time, make sure you meet the deadline of the local time and not waiting for the lead institution deadline. And all of them submit it on time, and then it goes to the agency as a collaborative proposal. And you will see that there are different cover sheets for the different proposals, meaning the lead institution will have its own cover sheet, the collaborative proposal will have its own cover sheet, but the whole package has to reach the sponsor in time. So the alternative method to the collaborative proposal, if linking is too much and this is a complicated process, and if there is no stipulation for the expectation of submitting it at a collaborative research proposal, you can submit it as a single proposal as well. Here is where the lead initiates the proposal, the rest of the pieces are added as subcontracts. So what are the pieces that the lead organization and non-lead organizations are responsible for the times when you submit it as a collaborative research proposal? So the lead will have its own cover sheet. They will be responsible for uploading the project summary that Sue discussed just now, and also the project description, references cited, biographical sketches for the lead institution members, and the budget and budget justification for the lead part only, and then the current and pending COA, those types of documents related to the members from the lead institution, and also the facilities and equipment and other resources. Please make sure only the lead institution part of the pieces are presented here. You don't need to cover the non-lead organization information here. And you will submit the data management plan, and if need be, the postdoctoral mentoring plan. As Sue mentioned, there is only one DMP and one postdoctoral mentoring plan, irrespective of the separate collaborative proposals. And the non-lead is responsible for their cover sheet. Remember, they have to initiate their own proposal, and the biographical sketches, current and pending, and COAs for the team members from this particular institution. and the budget justification, and facilities from the non-lead organization. So this is a really nice information to store somewhere, because many times we do collaborative proposals like not regularly, and we see sometimes the lead institution adding their facility, adding everyone else's facilities information in theirs. So this would be very handy to have this printed somewhere. So let's say, you have prepared your proposal, you have submit, like all the pieces are coming together. And what's the process? What's the actual process in developing the proposal, submission, and the award process? So the first stage of this proposal development is the opportunity announcement. So like this phase, like, typically is about 90 days. And once there is the opportunity announced, you have some lead time. Many times, this is not enough to prepare a strong proposal, but make sure you catch the announcement as soon as you can. And then you develop the proposal, and then make sure it's like all the pieces are compliant, and you follow the expectations of the guidelines in terms of developing all the pieces and all aspects of the proposals. Many times, like if the proposals are returned without review for very simple and silly reasons. So try to avoid all the mistakes, and NSF is very strict, and make sure you submit a compliant and complete package on time. And once the proposal is received, then it takes about 6 months for the proposal review process. So this is where you put the start date as like, sometimes the guidelines doesn't specify what's the start date of the award is. So in those times, you would count the 6 months from the submission time as your start date. This is the reason why we have that 6 months. So once the sponsor receives a compliant and complete package, then the reviewers are selected, and then there is a peer review, and then the next step is the program officer recommendation, and then the final step is the division director review. So many times a good news is heard sooner than 6 months, but sometimes, this process is pretty complicated, and so it may take up to 6 months. So once the award is made, then there is some award processing time. There is like some paperwork that needs to be taken care of during the award setup, etc. So give it another 30 days. So you can see, like, this can run into close to 1 year. So from preparing the proposal to getting the award. So make sure, like, you target opportunities, and you keep working on proposals, keeping this timeline in mind. So if you're like if you want more money or fund your research, make sure you are aware of this. Like the submission to the award process can take time, and account that in developing your proposals. So David talked about people can suggest reviewers and all those things, and then you see the funding rate there. So encourage researchers to become reviewers. This not only helps the NSF, but it's also very helpful for the researchers themselves. So because reviewers gain firsthand knowledge of the peer review process and learn about the common problems that are picked on by reviewers during this process. And this also gives them knowledge to gain strategies to write strong proposals. So what are the gaps that are identified, like how to fill them, overcome those challenges that many proposals face and fail. So through serving on the panel, you also make friends, remember, it's a small community of researchers probably, and then you may want to this will be a chance to meet colleagues and develop networks in this process. So that's the overview of what a typical NSF proposal package is, and what's the review process is, and the different pieces. Now coming to the different types of NSF proposals. So some are more typical unsolicited NSF proposals, and some are unique. For example, this rapid response research, or the proposal, or the rapid proposal. So the rapid release of funds have a very different type of merit review and different type of approach for submitting the proposal. So these are especially asked for or like appreciated is in times of and times where we have to have like a quick response to a situation. For example, there was a Hurricane Harvey, like, you know, that we saw so many issues related to that, and any research that's surrounding that would meet that challenge, right? So those are some of the examples that where you would submit a rapid proposal. However, it's not very straightforward. First of all, you have to run the idea or what your plan is for this proposal through the program manager. This is not the typical peer review process, because the program manager is highly involved in like whether encouraging or supporting these types of proposals and awards. The budgets typically have a maximum limit of 200K for 1 year, and it's just an internal review with optional external input. And remember, like Sue was talking about, typically the NSF project descriptions are 15-page long. Here it's only 5 pages, and the title always begins with rapid. So make sure that you are familiar with the program manager from that particular program. You understand the culture of that program and the expectations and the portfolio of the program manager. And this is developing a strong relationship with the program manager is very important to get these types of proposals funded. The other one is called the Early Concept Grant for Exploratory Research, or the EAGR proposal. These proposals support typically exploratory research in early stages where, you know, where nobody has tested, nobody knows as much background information or preliminary data, but could potentially transform the field and may be considered high risk and high payoff. So some radical new approach and new expertise that engage new methods or new disciplines that bring new knowledge to this field. So again, for this program, you have to contact the program officer prior to the submission and probably have like almost like, you know, a confirmation that yes, go ahead and submit this and we will review it. So this the project description is a little longer than rapid. It is 8 pages long, and the monies are also a little higher than rapid proposals. Here it is 300K and up to 2 years duration. Again, this is only internal review with optional external input. So the other unique one is called the RAISE, or the Research Advanced by Interdisciplinary Science and Engineering Proposal. So this is to support bold interdisciplinary projects. So remember, the interdisciplinary is the key here. So the scientific advances lie in the great part outside the scope of a single program, meaning that, you know, not just some disciplines from engineering or some disciplines of science is able to achieve this. Rather, the integration of both worlds are required to achieve what you're set out to do. So lines of research have to be transformational, not incremental. So, and remember, like NSF is all about fundamental science and advancing the knowledge gaps or filling the knowledge gaps and adding new additional fundamental knowledge. So this has to be transformational and not just stepwise improvement. So the prospective discoveries reside at the interface of interdisciplinary boundaries. So there will be co-reviewers from the different fields, and the submission or acceptance of the proposal is contingent on 2 program officers, because this is an interdisciplinary project. And the monies are higher, and it can request up to $1 million and up to 5 years in duration. So the other one that you might have heard a lot more is the goalie type of proposal. So unlike rapid, EAGR, or RAISE, this is not a separate proposal on its own. Rather, goalie is a setup within the regular NSF proposal where you have an industry involvement. So this is basically to stimulate collaboration between academic research institutions and industry. And this is not a separate program, unlike the others that we just visited. So again, prior to developing a goalie type of proposal, contact the program officer and make sure you know what you're proposing is in line with the expectations of the program. So at least one industrial co-PI must be on the cover sheet, not just on the team, but they must be showcased on the cover sheet. So make sure they have an NSF ID, because without an NSF ID, you cannot add team members to the cover sheet. And the other key part is that the industrial participant who is going to be on the cover sheet cannot use or receive any NSF funds, meaning that there is no budget allocated for this industrial co-PI that will be on the cover sheet. So that means a lot in terms of finding the team member that will serve that role. So make sure you discuss this with the industrial partner and not assuming that they will get some budget out of this project. So, and there also has to be a letter from the industrial partner that confirms the participation as a co-PI from the industry. And academic and industry partners should agree in advance about the IP rights, etc. So goalie proposals are not just like, you have a moment of, some brainstorming and say, hey, now I'm going to convert my project description into a goalie proposal. No, a lot of legwork has to be done way before you add the word goalie in front of the title of a regular NSF proposal. So this does have some advantages, but also needs a lot of homework before you go this route. So on the last slide, I think, is about the NSF graduate research fellowships. These are very prestigious, and these are 5-year awards amounting to 138K. These awards are for financial support for the grad student, and there is a stipend associated with it, and there is also some money for educational allowance, and also in lieu of tuition and fees. And this is not only prestigious for the student to get this on their CV, this also is important for the PIs and the labs, because this alleviates some burden away from the PIs, meaning that, the PI doesn't have to find like funding or resources to keep supporting these graduate students. And also this is a good experience for the students about how to write proposals and how to raise funds for their own programs. And the other opportunities available at NSFs are something called the interns and some other programs that you can go visit NSF for. So I think these are great opportunities for our students, and we do provide support developing these proposal packages. So you can always reach out to us about these as well. So that's all we have for now, and we are open to questions. Thank you.